Hello, I'm Geoffrey Clements. I'm the Chairman of Commonwealth Infrastructure Partners. In this presentation, we're going to consider the concept and function of a project management office. The number of companies that have a project management office, or PMO, has increased dramatically in the past decade, and the adoption of a PMO has become standard in many industries. The PMO is the department or group within a company. It defines and monitors the project management procedures and methods. It sets the standards of project management and ensures that these standards are maintained. All projects need control, structure, governance, if they are to deliver the expected output. The Project Management Office creates the structured environment to create these outcomes, to make sure that all of the parameters that have been defined for the design and delivery and execution of the project are upheld at the requisite standards. The Project Management Office provides a centralized focus for all the project management activities. Now, in any complex project, there will be a number of different departments. Each department will be responsible for one activity or perhaps a number of activities. And as the project proceeds, one department will finish the execution of its particular activity or set of activities and then pass the product or the service on to the next department. And there has to be centralized coordination to make sure that all of these processes work according to the way in which the project has been set up. So let's look at four features of how the PMO provides this centralized focus. The first we could call project controls. These are the measures, the checks and balances to make sure that a project is on track. Next is governance, project governance. This can be defined as a management framework. From this, all the project decisions are made. This is critical for all projects, since the management framework, the governance structure, defines responsibilities and accountability associated with every department and its activity or its activities. And good governance provides the necessary format for good project control. The next is standards, project standards. These set the benchmarks for all the activities and, importantly, for all the deliverables, the deliverable of the whole project, but also the deliverables for every department and its activities. It also sets the procedures and the rules for executing the project. And finally, measures. Now, these include project process measures. These set the levels of performance for all activities and determines if these have been met. Then we have project output measures. These include the determinants of cost, schedule, and quality. And then we have outcome measures, which include factors such as scope, schedule, and budget. Because the PMO has an overview and an understanding of all the departments within the project and all the activities that the departments are carrying out, it has a commanding view of the project as a whole and how that project fits in with the overall activities of the company. And so, with this overview, the PMO addresses questions such as what work is being performed, by whom, when that activity is being conducted. It will also make sure that the activities of a project and the project as a whole, to make sure that's aligned with the priorities of the company. It also will look at how the return on investment, the ROI, is calculated for the project to make sure that the project is worthwhile in terms of its financial return to the company. A well-designed and well-executed project management office brings many benefits to the execution of a project and also to the efficiency of the activities of a company. This is why the PMO structures have been introduced more and more widely in companies across many sectors. When there are inadequate control procedures for a project and the activities of a company, then very often timescales are not met, projects will overrun in terms of time and cost. Budgets can actually be disregarded through a lack of direction or focus and a lack of firefighting capability. The project management office brings in that firefighting capability. It has an overview. It's able to see when particular activities or the project as a whole is going off track and bring in the necessary procedures in order to rectify that situation. The introduction of a well-coordinated and well-designed PMO creates integration between and among the sub-project managers. As we saw earlier, one of the responsibilities of a PMO is to make sure that as a set of activities is executed and completed by one department or one division in the project, which will have its own sub-project manager, then it's handed over efficiently and effectively to the next department for the execution of their activities. And so this is one function, a very important function of the PMO. It also makes sure that the overall project manager, and it can well be that the person in charge of the project management office is actually the overall project manager, and the functioning of the PMO makes sure that the project manager for the whole project, his understanding, his activities are well coordinated with those of the sub-project managers. The PMO also makes sure that standardized procedures and communication channels are established, and this makes sure that the project goes ahead in a profitable manner and that it's efficient and it's effective. It's important to realize that no organization or project has unlimited capacity or unlimited resources. One function of the PMO is to create a centralized prioritization to make sure that the resources and capacity are correctly allocated to the various departments and activities of the project. This is often done through setting up a project portfolio management or PPM philosophy and system. And one of the functions of this is to make sure that projects receive the right resources and the right level of resources and at the right time. And the PMO will have a view on the overall resources available, the financial constraints available, and the requirements and needs of the activities for the different divisions within the project and the project as a whole. And with that context, the PMO makes sure that the right level of resources are delivered to the appropriate departments and activities when they are needed at the right time. One of the main challenges facing an organization or a project is consistency. This is one of the factors that the project management office is designed to take care of. The PMO makes sure that procedures, monitoring, reporting, communication systems are consistent across departments and also consistent across time. And this is necessary in order to measure the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the product and the project, the reliability of the product to make sure that it's consistent over time. So planning methods, communication formats, all the systems that are involved in the design and execution of the project are under the direction of the Project Management Office, and the Project Management Office has to make sure that there is consistency in all of these features. Wherever there is deviation, it inevitably results in confusion, and there is a lack of transparency and a lack of consistency in the way that a project is delivered. Ownership and accountability are crucial for the successful delivery of any project. What do we mean by this? Every project sub-project manager, all the members of the team in any particular department have to feel that they have ownership of what they are doing in that department, and also a sense of ownership about the project as a whole. And one way to ensure this is by accountability. So each division, each department, all the members of a team in that particular department will know that they have to deliver according to certain standards, they have to deliver within a certain time frame, the quality has to be according to predefined levels. When team members and sub-project managers and the project manager as a whole know that these standards are there and that they are accountable for maintaining those standards and delivering according to those standards, then a sense of ownership is then accorded to the activities of each department and all the personnel within that department. And this is fundamental for successful project delivery. There's a very large psychological factor here as well, that team members and project leaders and sub-project managers feel a sense of pride that they are delivering the project according to the required standards. And that's why it's very important that those standards are defined clearly, and then everyone involved in the project knows exactly what is expected of them. So very often what is set up is what's called a project portfolio management system. And the way in which this is designed and delivered by the PMO and used by all the departments in the project, this is crucial in ensuring that the projects are run properly and that everybody involved in the project, right down to every single team member, everyone understands what is expected of them in the delivery of their task and the delivery of their activity. By definition, the functioning of a project management office and the creation of a project portfolio management system creates a top-down approach. Of course, the communication is in both directions, but the PMO has an overview, as it were, from above of all the activities and responsibilities and deliverables for every department within the project. Very often what is done is to create what is called a responsibility assignment matrix, an RAM, and this greatly simplifies not only the design of a project but also its execution, and to make sure that it is delivered in the way that it has been designed. So let's look at a simple example of a responsibility assignment matrix, RAM. So we see on this graphic here that there are 4 people in the project: George, Susan, Brenda and Tom, and there are various tasks that are involved: design, engineering, procurement, costing, production and marketing. So 6 main tasks and 4 people involved in executing those tasks. Now, what is the role? What are the roles of these 4 people in fulfilling these 6 tasks or 6 activities? So what has happened here is that 4 main attributes of activity have been assigned. R means responsible. So, for example, George is responsible for design. C means consulted. So in the design process, Susan has been consulted, but George is responsible for the design. Brenda is informed, so George and Susan work together. George has main responsibility. Susan is consulted about the design. And then Brenda is informed, so she gets to know what is the outcome of the design process, and then it is approved by Tom. And in the same way, if we look at the remaining rows within the this diagram, engineering, procurement, costing, production, marketing, then we'll see that in each row, or in other words, for each main activity or set of responsibilities, one person is responsible, one person is consulted, one person is informed, and one person gives the approval. Now, this is obviously a much simplified example. In any real project of substance, there would be more people involved. Very often, the names would be the department head of a particular division within the company, and the allocation of approval might actually rest with one person for every single activity. There might be different levels of approval. So there might be the senior engineer is at one level responsible for approval of an engineering component of the project, but then that approval has to go to the overall project manager to be signed off, to be approved by the project manager. So this is really just a simple example, but it's a way in which the project management office and the project manager can have an overview of the different levels of activity, the different responsibilities that different people or different departments have. There could be a responsibility assignment matrix within a department, for example. There might be 5 or 10 team members within the department, each of whom will have responsibility, consultant, approval and informed roles within that department, and then of course for the project as a whole. So one result of this is to make sure that there is an overview by the project manager and by the managers responsible for the different departments. They have an understanding of where responsibility lies and the other 3 functions that are mentioned here. But also it means that each individual or each individual team member knows exactly what their role is. So in terms of design, for example, Susan knows that she is not responsible for the design, but she has to be consulted. And so in the project reporting, it would have to be signed off that Susan has been consulted, and whatever functions are involved in that process are then reported, and George then takes on the overall responsibility for making sure that the design is executed according to standard. In summary, the responsibility assignment matrix defines the main categories of responsibility and how these are assigned among the personnel for each main project task and for each activity. The categories of responsibility will be decided and allocated according to the nature and scale of the project. In the chart we saw 4 categories of responsibility. The actual number and nature of the categories of responsibility will be determined by how complex the project is. It may be determined by how many members there are in each team, the number of activities for which that team is responsible, and so on. And in a larger organisation, very often the responsibilities are assigned to a department rather than a person. At least for the main responsibilities, subcategories of responsibility may then be allocated to individual team members. We've seen that a project management office has an overview and a comprehensive understanding of the roles, activities and responsibilities of all the teams that make up a project. And it's through this that the project management office assists in making sure that projects are delivered on time and on budget. So the PMO provides projects with a structured and managed approach. It does this by making sure that there's a thorough understanding of the activities, roles, responsibilities, and the time sequence for all the different departments within the project, all the teams, and how these are coordinated with each other. And by doing so, this enables clear decision making. It also allows for a rigorous and precise assessment of the performance of the project at all stages. And so, in turn, this provides the basis for sound judgment. There's quantitative and qualitative information available for sound judgment and decision making. And this also means that there can be a very thorough and solid assessment of risk and taking care of and mitigating risks, either those that are foreseen at the beginning of a project or those that come up and occur as the project proceeds. We'll now look at the usual stages of implementation of a project management office. And this is usually done in well-defined stages, a well-defined sequence, and ideally this should be done before the project commences. There are remedial steps that can be made if a PMO is implemented while a project is already running, but ideally this should all be done before the project commences. And so the design and the functionality of the PMO will aim to do the following. It will look at implementing strategies and procedures, and it will make sure that by implementing these strategies and procedures, the performance of the project is optimized and the results are according to the targets that have been set. So we'll look at the implementation of a PMO in the following 8 stages. The first is assessment and understanding. The second is evaluation of the strategy and objectives. 3, organizational assessment and design. 4, skills and capability audit. 5, the design of an optimized PMO. 6, standards, tools, methodology and measures. 7, RAM, WBS and CAM structures. And finally 8, in case the PMO is brought in after a project has started, recovery intervention in order to rectify anything that may not be going according to plan. So let's look at these stages one by one. The first stage is assessment and understanding. Usually by this stage the project manager and probably senior project management team will have been assembled according to the complexity of the project, and there will be an assessment conducted with the senior management of the company of the requirements of the project to understand what it involves, the resources that are required and so on, and all the challenges that may be there, and an assessment of risk. And if the project has already commenced, then an analysis of the as-is situation. Where has the project reached so far? Is it going according to plan? Have any new challenges or problems arisen? And what may be needed in order to rectify the situation in case problems have arisen? Next, there will be an evaluation of the strategy and the objectives of the project. And so there will be qualitative objectives, and usually these will be quantified in terms of the required outcomes, the resources that are needed in order to fulfill the project, and the various strategies that need to be employed in order to reach these objectives. Included in this will be an evaluation and projection about the timeline, the overall budget for the project, and the budgets required for the various parts of the project. And so what will be done at this stage is that there will be a comprehensive overview, and this is of course one of the functions of the Project Management Office, a comprehensive overview of the project as a whole, of its component parts, and how those component parts come together to make the whole project. The next stage is organisational assessment and design. In other words, design of the project structure and its component parts. So in this stage, there will be a thorough assessment of the organisational structure. This will include lines of authority and reporting, so how the different teams communicate and have lines of authority within them, reporting structures within the different teams, and similarly the lines of authority and reporting from the team managers to the project manager, the project leader, and to the project management office. This stage also includes an understanding of the overall design of the project, which will look at the allocation of roles, responsibilities, activities, and also looking at the constituent parts of the overall design and which parts are taken care of by which teams and which team members. This stage, this process will also identify any organisational gaps. For example, 5 teams may have been assigned for the different activities, the different tasks within the project, and this may throw up an understanding that there may be some gaps within that organisation, some activities which either overlap or which are not taken care of properly by a particular team. Also, this stage looks at the transformation risks. As a project proceeds, we go from what we can call the raw materials of the project, the starting point, and how these are transformed into the output of the project. And so at every stage of transformation, there are various risks, various issues that arise. For example, as one activity is completed and the project may then be handed over to another team, what are the risks involved in that handover procedure? And then looking at the actions that must be implemented to take care of any gaps or any overlaps, any risks that are determined or risks that may arise during the project, and any other issues that may be identified. The next stage is an audit of the skills and capabilities in the project and of the various team members and the team leaders and even of the project manager. And so this audit will catalogue and determine the skills of team members and of the team units, their organisational capability. It will look at the various functional units, but also importantly it should look at the capabilities of the individual members of the teams. This will enable the PMO to identify the strengths, shortcomings and any gaps in capability, and this leads to recommendations as to how those capability gaps and skills gaps should be and must be filled before the project commences. This stage is really crucial in the effective implementation of a project. Once a project is already underway, it is usually very difficult to fill capability and skills gaps as they come along. For any complex project, inevitably there will be some issues that arise as the project is implemented, discovery that the skills and capabilities don't match entirely with the requirements at a particular stage. But if the audit has been done effectively to begin with, then the risk of this happening is minimized. The next stage looks at the design of an optimized PMO. We've seen in the previous stages that we've looked at organisational assessment and design, we've looked at the skills and capability audit, and now we're looking at how the Project Management Office should be designed in such a way as to integrate all the requirements of the project. It will be different from one project to another. It will vary according to the complexity of the project. It will vary according to the sector and the type of project that is going to be implemented. But in general, there will be certain main concepts that will be integrated into the optimized design and functionality of the project management office. These include governance, portfolio management, optimization of resources, and measurements of organisational performance. And again, the metrics that are used in order to determine these factors will vary according to the nature of the project and the way that the project has been designed. And the end result of this is that the objective of the PMO is to maximise the business benefits of project management. The next stage will be to determine the standards, tools, methodology and measures that the project management office will use for the project. So far we've had an assessment and understanding of the project. We've had an evaluation of the strategy and objectives, the organisational assessment and design. We've conducted a skills and capability audit, and we've looked at the design of the optimised PMO. Now, every project is unique, and this means that the standards and methods, the tools that are used will be unique for that project. And so, based on the evaluation in these earlier stages, these elements are introduced. What standards will be adopted, what tools will be used in order to determine that these standards are being met, the methodologies that are used, and the measures that will be implemented in order to make sure that the project is going according to plan. And bringing these together will mean that the PMO can have effective project oversight from the inception of the project through to its conclusion, its fulfillment. The next stage is to look at some of the tools and methods that will be used by the project management office. This includes the responsibility assignment matrix, the work breakdown structure, and usually, and this again is according to the nature of the project, a product breakdown structure for the physical components of the project and a cost breakdown structure. So let's look at some simple examples of these elements. A work breakdown structure. We'll take a very simple example, building a house. So what we've done here is to simplify it to say that building the house has three main components, the foundations, the interior and the exterior. And for simplicity, we've just given two main activities or elements of work for each of these three. So the foundations, excavation and construction of the foundations, the interior, electrical and plumbing, the exterior, the walls and the roof. And these are numbered as we've seen here. So the PMO can keep track of the work breakdown structure either by the names of these elements of activity or by the numbers that are put to represent them. So for example, construction of the foundations would be 01, 01, 02. The roof would be 01, 03 and 02. Obviously this is a very simple example. For any complex project there will be many more items within the work breakdown structure, but by identifying them, putting them into a hierarchical diagram in this way, and by identifying them with a code by means of a number, means that the PMO has a very effective way of understanding and recording the main elements in the work breakdown structure, and this makes for effective communication from the PMO to the various departments and between the different teams. The product breakdown structure looks at the elements of a project in terms of the physical components. So we take the same example, the house with foundations, interior and exterior, but here we look at the actual physical elements that are required for each of these project components. So for foundations, again, it's a very simplified example. For foundations, concrete, breeze blocks. For the interior, wallpaper, carpet. For the exterior, bricks, tiles. So again, if we want to see the codes for this, breeze blocks will be 01, 01, 02. Carpet will be 01, 02, 02. And in a more realistic example, having these codes is an extremely valuable way in which the project manager and the PMO keep track of all the physical components of the project and communicate between the project departments and the project manager and between the various departments in the project. The cost breakdown structure will typically look at costs in terms of their main categories and then break this down further into the specific cost in those categories. So we take another example here, which is an airline. An airline will have direct costs, so according to the number of flights it has and the payload, the fuel costs will be directly proportional, and airport charges also according to the number of flights. Then there will be indirect costs, which are not proportional to the activities. For example, here we've put marketing and administration. And again, according to the complexity and the nature of the project, the cost breakdown structure will reflect the most appropriate way of categorizing the costs and the specific costs that fit into those categories. The creation and development of the work breakdown structure, product breakdown structure, and the cost breakdown structure provide a frame of reference and the necessary details for the control account manager, CAM. And these structures also provide the basis for developing and implementing the responsibility assignment matrix for the project. In some cases, a project management office may be introduced when a project is already running for recovery intervention. This will be the case when the project has run into difficulties, it's encountering challenges, and then the PMO will propose the relevant and necessary interventions to solve the problems and challenges and to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the project. Typically, the elements of recovery intervention will include having better control over all the project elements and the resources. It will include improved management of time, of finances, people and quality. And importantly, it will ensure that there is enhanced coherence of the activities, so the different departments are working more coherently with one another so that the whole project can move consistently in the right direction. And an important objective of establishing a project management office in these situations is that there will then be expert leadership to regain control and to provide direction for the elements of the project that are in serious risk. In this presentation, we have considered the main features of a project management office and how a PMO is utilised in the design and implementation of a project. Methods are becoming increasingly sophisticated, and the implementation of a project management office is becoming more and more widespread. Thank you for watching. Please contact us for any further information, and do please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can always read more about Commonwealth Infrastructure Partners on our website.